Hi everybody, happy Monday. Super excited to hang out here with you guys virtually today. I am not live today. Normally our videos are all live on Mondays, but I am on vacation. So I am here to sew this block together with you, and I'm going to walk you through all the steps just like I normally do. Just have a recording today. So feel free to comment and still interact. I will be checking and commenting and talking back with all you guys throughout the week. So make sure that you're still participating. But today we are going to be sewing through our small patchwork star blocks as part of our Swinging on a Star sew along. That's a lot of S's. So today we are going to be making the small patchwork star, which is this block right here. And it's got a really fun sort of patchy center and then the star block around it, and then it's got some little corners that blend so that it's carried through like all the other star blocks in the quilt. And it's really a great block. It's fun and fast to sew. We are going to be making up 4 of these. So this is what the block looks like. This is the small patchwork star, and you can see it's got a sweet 9 patch in the center, and then these great star points, and then these cute little corner sections. So we're going to be sewing that together, but let's talk about giveaways first. Last week our giveaway prize was this really fun Crayola fat quarter box. It looks like a crayon box. It's so cute, but it's got 10 solid fat quarters in it. It's got these great colors in it. And then I also have for you a set of my handmade labels. There are 3 in this pack, and they say handmade. They're really fun. And then a sweet pair of kind of vintage inspired pink embroidery scissors that are nice and sharp. So I can't tell you the winner for this, but I am posting it along with the information in today's video. So because this is pre-recorded, I want to give everybody the full week to enter. So check today's the description of today's video, and that's going to have our winner in it. So check there. It's super easy to enter our giveaways. All you have to do is comment, and you can comment the first time you're watching. You can comment if you're watching later in the week, anytime before the next Monday video starts. So you have a week to enter. And so we have a giveaway for this week, which I'm really excited about. This is my Penny Serenade quilt, and it is another one of the patterns that I designed to go with Stardust. There were 3, the Swinging on a Star quilt, Penny Serenade, and then there's a third quilt that has scallop borders that is just beautiful. It's called String of Pearls. And I tried to make them all pre-cut friendly. So you need fat quarters for this quilt. You need a 10-inch stacker for the String of Pearls quilt. And then for this quilt, it uses a roly-poly 2.5-inch strips. So I thought, why not give away a roly-poly too? So I have for you guys a roly-poly of Stardust. So this is the same fabrics that you see behind me, and it's just my brand new collection through Riley Blake Designs. So you pretty much have everything you need to make the quilt except for the borders and the background. This quilt also uses my half hexie and triangle templates. So if you already have those, you're on your way. This includes the paper templates, so you don't have to use them. And if you have been waiting for the templates, they are going to be here soon. There were some shipping problems, and you probably heard about them on the news with some shipping containers that got stuck, and unfortunately my templates were on one of them. So they will be here soon. We're hoping by the end of July. So if you are the winner and you want to pick up this the hexie template set, you only should have another week or 2 to wait. So I will announce the winner for this giveaway next week when we are back again live. So so make sure you're commenting to enter. So that is our giveaway information. So we are going to start sewing this patchwork star, and I'm going to move my camera here, and we are going to get going. So I am just going to move my little setup here so that you guys can see what we're doing. and we're ready to sew. And here we are. Okay, so let me show you again a close-up of this. So this fun little design is got the patchwork in the center, it's got the star points, and it's got these cute little half square triangle corners. So we are going to start with our corner pieces. And I'm going to move this over here so that we have some space. And so it's helpful to have a smallish ruler when you are working this week. And you are also going to need a marking pen unless your sewing machine has a laser already part of it. So what you're going to start with are the 2.5-inch background squares. And I've prepped some of those already. But we are going to start with our A and M pieces. So these are our M background pieces, and this is our A print piece. And you're going to draw a diagonal line from corner to corner on your background square. So we're just going to go ahead and do that. Super easy. And then we're going to place these two right sides together, and we're going to sew on this marked line. And if you see anywhere a sew and flip or stitch and flip method, when you're sewing, that's what we're doing here. So if you see something like that and you're not really sure what that means, this is what that means. So we're just gonna ooch over here a little bit so you guys can see the sewing machine. So I am going to now sew on this marked line, and you're going to repeat this for all 4 of your pieces. I've prepped these ahead of time, so I'm only going to show you one, but you're making 4 of these, 1 for each corner. So you can see I've sewn down that marked line. So now all you need to do is trim off this one side. So you're going to place your ruler. Sorry, we're going to go back and forth here a little bit with the ruler today. You're going to place your ruler so that the seam allowance, so that you have 1/4 inch outside the seam allowance. So you're going to leave, you're going to run your ruler along your seam, and then I have 1/4 inch outside that. So I'm going to trim off this end, and that can show you a little bit better that extra piece that you've trimmed off. So now you have a half square triangle, and we're going to press. So I'm going to press this towards the print fabric. And as I mentioned, you need to repeat this 4 times. So feel free to use the chain piecing that we've been talking about. So you're going to need 4 of these. So I've got 4 all ready to go here. And these are the corners of our block. So we are going to now sew on the extra little background pieces that we need to fill out those corners to make them so that they fit. And I like to place the corners in place in the directions that I want them to go. So on our big block, you can see that our triangles point in towards the center. So I'm going to make sure that all of my pieces are pointing in towards the center. And then you are going to lay an end background piece towards the center also. So on this side, they're going to go on the right side. Oops. And on these 2 pieces, they're going to go on the left side. And I like to do this because if I'm working with directional fabrics, it's much easier for me to keep track of where my direction is. But it's also, I like the layout to be the same at the corners. You're basically making a square, so it doesn't have to be sewn this direction, but I think it makes an overall tidier block if you have everything laid out correctly. So now I'm just going to place these right sides together, and I'm going to sew all 4 of them together. And then we will press. But I'm going to chain piece these together, placing these right sides together. and I'm just sewing down all 4 pieces. And I love this kind of star corner. You'll see it on a lot of my quilts. If you've made one of my quilts before, I think Stars and Windows has these particular corners, and we're also going to use this same method. Actually, it will be a little bit different. I was thinking we were going to use this same method for our large patchwork stars, but we will use it for the churn dash stars that we're going to make after this. So you'll probably get used to piecing your corners like this. So now we have all 4 of our little corner pieces and they're sewn. So we are going to press towards the sashing. So I'm going to press these real quick. And I'm going to keep them in my layout so that I'm able to keep track of what I'm doing. Well, my corners are all messed up. I took them out of order. Okay, so there's that side and one more. And here we go. So now we've made these 4 corners and they have our first 2 background pieces on them. So we're going to repeat these same steps, but we're going to round out our squares with the O background pieces. So we are going to place these on the top 2 pieces at the bottom. These are going to be at the top of our square, and at the bottom of our square these will go here. So you can kind of see how our square will fit in here afterwards. So we're going to follow these same steps. These are going right sides together, and we're going to sew all 4 of these in place. And again, I'm going to chain piece these together, and we're just going to sew these up real quick. And these are easy to do across 4 blocks as well. Once you are making all 4 of your blocks, go ahead and do all your cutting at once. The cutting for all 4 blocks are in the instructions, so you're cutting them all out at the same time. So, you know, you can do all of your half square triangles together and then sew all your side pieces together. So, you know, you'll just be multiplying 4 times 4 blocks, so you'll be making 16 total. But that way you can kind of keep track of everything, and it makes overall piecing of all 4 blocks really quick because you're just doing them all at once. So this is our last one, and then we are going to press again towards the sashing, towards the background fabric. I think of it as sashing because it's kind of in between the block, but it's really just part of our background fabric. So I'm going to press these really quick, and then we will show you how they kind of lay out together. So there's the top one, and the next one. So those are the top 2 pieces. And then we have one more. Okay, so these are our corner pieces. They're all set. So we're going to pick these up and lay them to the side. And now we're going to work on our star blocks. So we should have 4 pieces that are, this is the background L piece. And then you're going to need the B print pieces. So what we're going to do is we're going to draw again a diagonal line on the wrong side of our B print pieces. So I'm going to just line my ruler up with the top and bottom of my square, and I'm going to draw a diagonal line. So you can see here, I'm using the air disappearing side of my pen because I'm sewing right now, so it doesn't matter. But you can use the water-soluble side. You don't have to rinse this out because it's going to be in the seam. It's not going to show. So now I have 2 pieces with the diagonal lines. And I am going to place this one. This is the first side. We're starting with the left side of our star. And this is an easy way to tell if you're, using the right direction, if you're using directional fabrics, because you can check it. Our star will go like this. I'm going to turn them this way. But you can pick whichever side you want to show as, so I wasn't fussy cutting these fabrics, but I did want to make sure that on the actual pieces, maybe the prettier print side is going to show. So you can check that by folding this back on the diagonal line, and you can see, oh, this one's got more of the florals than if I were to turn it this way and fold it down, where this one's just got a little bit of leaves. So you can check your angles when you're sewing. You can use your directional fabrics this way. Just make sure before you draw the line on that the fabric, when you fold it over, will be facing the direction you want it to face. So I am going to sew now. This is on the left side of this piece, and I'm going to sew straight down that diagonal line. And we're sewing right, oops, I got a little caught up in the feed there. So I'm going to, sometimes if your sewing machine eats your fabric, it's a little bit easier to start with more fabric under your presser foot than the corner, so I just kind of flipped it around. I'm still sewing on that marked line, but I'm starting at the other side because it tried to eat my it doesn't do that very often, but of course when it does, I'm on camera. So now I've sewn this marked line, and you can see that it is in place, and that makes one side of our stars. So I am going to trim off this. Again, just like we did with the little half square triangles, I'm going to trim 1/4 of an inch away from that seam. So this is just a little scrap piece. You can keep those if you want, or you can throw them away, depending upon how avid you get with your scrappiness. So now you can see this is the one side of our star, and I'm going to press towards the print fabric, and you want that to have a nice sharp press because you're going to be sewing over the top of that. So here we are. We've got some little strings here. So here we are with this, and now we're going to do the same thing with this side, the right side, and you can see I'm also going to check this side. Okay, well, that one isn't as pretty, so I'm going to turn it around, and I am going to see, okay, there's more flowers, so I'm going to face it this direction. You just want to make sure that your line is going this way, starting at the top right and going towards the bottom left. So now I'm going to sew again on that marked line, and you're going to overlap that seam just a little bit at the bottom. So I've sewn on the marked line, and now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to trim off 1/4 of an inch away from the marked line. And so when we open that up, we have the 2 points of the star. So I'm going to go ahead and press that. And if you look at your pieces, you will see that they overlap at the bottom here 1/4 of an inch from the end, and that makes it so that when you sew your seam, it lines up with the bottom of those points. So it should overlap. That's a good thing. So I've gone ahead and prepped my others. There are 4 here. So now we can set those aside, and we can start our patchwork. And I'm going to show you how I do that. I like to lay this out as well, only because I like to make sure where my fabric is going, and some of these fabrics, I'm going to move my piece here so I can see it. Some of these fabrics are directional, like these little fans, and I want them to all face up. So I'm going to place my pieces, kind of like a puzzle, in the place that I want them. So I'm just going to place them out here. This is the layout I used on the cover. You can make yours as patchworky as you would like. Feel free to get creative with yours. If you want to change up where some of your prints are, feel free to do that. Now on my blocks, I kept the gold print in the center of all my blocks of my patchwork stars. I wanted to add a little bit of cohesiveness with some of the other blocks, and I just liked having that gold in the center and on the corners. I just felt like it kind of evened out the block a little bit, but you don't have to do it that way. Feel free to change out anything you would like with this 9 patch. You can even add in some of the other prints that it looks like we're not using a lot of, you know, so maybe some of the other blocks have only 1 or 2 pieces of the prints, so you're going to have some left over from your fat quarter. So get creative with your patchwork blocks and add in some of the others that aren't used a whole lot. Or I think there's one other print, the main cream floral wasn't used at all in the quilt. So feel free to change up your block if you want to add in some of those others. So now I'm going to sew these together, and I'm just going to start at the top left. I'm going to take a drink here really quick. I'm going to start at the top left, and I'm going to chain piece this entire section together. So I'm starting top left, and I'm placing these right sides together. One second. Came unthreaded here. So let me thread my machine real quick. Take me 2 seconds. It's very fast. I think I had to do this last week too. Which is funny because, and I think this is the only 2 times in my entire video series that I've had to do that. But of course it would be back to back. All right, here we go. Now we are rolling. Okay, so I'm sewing the first 2 together, and now I'm not clipping my threads. I am going to place the middle one on top of the left piece in the second row, and I'm going to keep going down. You're making sure that everything is lined up nice and square, because that's going to make your patchwork center square. So you want everything to be even. And notice that I placed both my fan pieces that are in this patchwork piece right side up. This is very easy to do directional fabrics with, because as you're laying them out, you're watching how you're placing them all in place. So this kind of turned. So I'm going to cut this off here real quick. So now I have my 3 pieces in place, and when you open them back up, you can see that they are correct. So I'm just going to show you real quick. So here they all are, but they're still held together. So now I'm going to keep them held together, and I'm going to go ahead and add my last column here. So I'm placing the top piece in the top row on the second piece. And then without cutting, I'm going to open up this. Let me move this over here a little bit for you. Without cutting, I'm going to open up this second row and place this next piece in place right there. So I'm going to sew that seam. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the last row. So this is my last little piece, and it goes right there on the corner. And now we are all sewn. Okay, so everything is still held together. You can see that my rows are still held together. Move over here a little bit. So now we're going to press, and I don't usually cut these apart, but you can if you feel like it is driving you nuts. So I'm going to press, and I'm going to press these as instructed in the pattern booklet. It shows you how to press each row so that the seams nest together when you sew row 1 to row 2 and row 2 to row 3. So I'm going to take a second and press these. Want them nice and crisp. And a lot of times with these, I will press on the wrong side and then I flip it over and press on the right side, and sometimes that helps me catch anything that I have, you know, gotten too much fabric in to the seam, or it isn't quite as crisp and open as I would like it to be. So I'm just going to do that here real quick because I really want the center of my 9-patch block to be the correct size. Here we are. So now here's our 9-patch, all cute and pressed. So all we have to do left is sew the rows together. So I'm taking my first row and placing it on my second row, and I'm using my thumb to kind of feel where those seams are lined up and so that they are nested together. So I'm going to sew this row together, making sure everything's nice and straight. And the beauty about not cutting it is you don't have to worry about which pieces go where or what direction they face either. You tend to have less pieces turned the wrong way if they're just held in place by those little strings. So now I'm going to, I sewed row 1 to row 2, and I'm going to flip up row 3 onto row 2, and I am going to sew those together. Again, lining up my seams, making sure they are nested. And all we have to do is this last seam for the middle of our 9-patch star, or our small patchwork star. Same thing. Okay, so now you can see that I've opened that out and they're all sewn. So I'm going to press this as instructed in the pattern booklet. I have you will need this pattern so that you know the piece sizes and all the pressing instructions. I'm not giving all that information today, but the pattern is linked in today's video so that you can find it in my shop easily. There are a lot of quilt shops that are carrying it as well that are carrying Stardust fabric. So you can check out my Stardust fabric shops list and find that easily. So here's the center of our patchwork star. So cute, right? So now all we have to do is start assembly, and I'm going to move this out just a little bit so that you guys can see the whole piece. And so here we have the center, and we're going to place star points on each side. And you can move these around, you know, maybe one of your flowers looks better facing one of the other directions than the others. I'm just going to go ahead actually and move this. This is me being overly careful, but so I've got pink flowers here, and so I have pink flowers down at the bottom, and same with the blue flowers. Now I have them on each side. So that's me being overly cautious with my little flowers. Not cautious, but and now we can take our star pieces and place them at each corner where they go. So now we can see how our block is laid out. I'm going to zoom up here just a little bit so you can see it a little better. You can see how our block is laid out, and we can make sure that everything's lining up the same way. Our triangles all point in. This one is, you'll have to take my word for it because it is down there under my face. So they all line in. Our star points all face the same way. So it's a kind of a good like double check before we start sewing to make sure that everything is facing the same direction. So now we're going to piece this together just like we did with the 9-patch, in that this is just a big 9-patch. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's not perfectly, you know, all the same sized blocks, but it is still a 9-patch. So we're going to sew it together the same way we did the center, and we're going to place this right sides together, the top row, the middle one on top of the left one. And again, doing it this way keeps track of where all your pieces are. If you have been careful with your placement of your, you know, directional fabric, you don't have to worry about twisting those or anything like that. And everything lines up really nice. So now I'm going to place this right sides together with my left star piece. And we are working on that, and I haven't cut my threads. I'm keeping going. Now, if this feels confusing to you, please feel free to clip your threads in between. You don't have to chain piece this like this. If you work better sewing, you know, all of your rows together and then, you know, sewing like your top row together, your middle row together. I just cut that thread out of habit. I'm just going to back up here and do like a little seam so they're attached. Feel free to do it the way that you work best. Just because this is the way I work best doesn't mean it's the way you work best. So use your judgment on how you sew this block together. As long as it is all sewn together with the pieces going the right way, that's all that matters. So don't fret if you feel like you don't want to do it this way. Okay, so now I'm going to lay this down so you can see a little bit. So now we can open up our pieces and you can see that the seams on this side are all sewn. Super easy, right? So now we're going to follow the same steps and we're going to place these right sides together with this side of the block and we're going to sew these together. I'm going to scooch these out just a little bit so that I don't knock them off onto the floor while I sew. So we're just following the same steps. We're sewing all the way down on this side of the block. The last row here is being pieced. So I've got my last middle section. I'm gonna lift up my presser foot there real quick just to make sure I don't mess up catch that seam. And then one more to do, this last little guy, and I'm just double checking, yep, that's facing the same way. Since I moved it over, I don't want to turn it and make sure my star is going crazy. And just lifting up over that seam so it's still lined up the right way. And now all of our rows are sewn together. So first row is sewn and there's a little bit of space, but it's still held by those strings. The second row is held in place and the third row is held in place and everything is facing the right way. So now we have a super easy task of pressing, and the pressing instructions are in the pattern. So press to that. That helps you nest these seams together so that the block is nice and flat when you sew those rows to each other. I'm kind of at a weird angle here. Very twisted. Do you guys keep a sewing machine or an iron next to your sewing machine? I normally don't have one. I do have a little Oliso mini iron that I really love to use for that. But with this room set up the way that it is, I don't have the space for that. But I am going to have it when we get my sewing room all built in the new house. So that's my plan there, because I do like when I'm working on a block that has a lot of pressing on it to have a sewing machine, an iron right next to the sewing machine. It just makes it so convenient. Okay, so here is our block again, and you can see it's all nicely pressed. And now I'm going to lay row 1 on top of row 2. And I usually pin here. I don't have my pins over here, but those seams nest together really well, so they're going to make it easy for you to know where to line up those blocks. And those little strings that you haven't cut help with that too, because then you don't have to worry too much about placement. Those strings are kind of holding you in place. So it's real easy to line everything up. And this block is fitting together much better than last week's block did. I felt like that was a little bit of a hot mess. But I think that was because I didn't turn it over and press on the right side as well as on the wrong side while I was sewing with you guys. And it didn't, I had gotten some wrinkles in there and it wasn't laying very nicely. So we're not going to do that again. So now you can see I've got row 1 sewn to row 2. And we're going to do the exact same thing with this bottom row. We're making sure our seams nest together really well and our ends line up. And then we're just going to sew, and then we will be done with this block. And that's all there is to this one. And the beauty is the next week's block is really similar. It just has a different center. And then the week after that, we are doing the big patchwork star, the large patchwork star block, which I'm just telling you is a crazy fun block to sew together. It's big. You guys will be like, what? But oversized blocks are just my favorite. I think they are so much fun. And you can really make some big showy blocks. I'm sorry I didn't move that camera over. I just realized you're watching me sew the side here. So here is our block all pieced together. So I can kind of move that around so you can see all the corners are in the right place. The stars are lined up. We have this really cute patchwork in the center, and we've remembered to make sure that our directional pieces are all correct. So now I'm going to press this. And your instructions are in your book, which way to press to make sure that it lays as flat as possible. Some of these would work well for some of these bulkier seams if you do the press your seams open. Feel free to do that if that's your preference. Sometimes I will do that if I'm feeling like, oh, there's kind of a lot in here, and sometimes it just feels like the block lays a little bit flatter if you are pressing your seams open. So use your judgment there if you feel like you want to do that. I promise it's not going to hurt anything. So now I'm just pressing on top. I flipped my piece over and I am pressing the right side of my piece just to make sure everything is lining up really nicely, and doing a nice press. And that's all there is to it. So here's our block all pressed and pretty. So I'm going to go back to our main camera here. All right, everybody. So that was the patchwork, small patchwork star. We still have our large patchwork star to do. But here's where our block turned out, and you can see how fun they are to do, especially when you're doing multiples. Again, you're making 4 of these. All that information is in the pattern booklet or the PDF pattern, depending upon, it's all the same pattern, depending upon how you purchase the format. And just as a reminder, I am not live right now, but feel free to still comment or ask questions or interact. I will be checking the video several times throughout the week and answering questions. And also don't forget to enter the giveaway. Our giveaway this week is for my Penny Serenade quilt pattern. Really fun one to sew. And, excuse me, a roly-poly of Stardust. So you're going to want to definitely enter to win that. And the easy way to enter is just leave a comment on the video. And you can do that if you're watching on Facebook Live, or Facebook, not live, in our group, or if you are on YouTube. It doesn't matter. I pull all the entries together and then I pick a random number. I have this, if you go to random.org, you can put in numbers and it gives you a random number, and then I just count down, and that's how the winner is picked every week. So it's definitely all random. But leave comments to enter, and that's how you win. And I will see you next week. I will be back live next week to sew together the next block in the quilt with you guys. And I hope you have a really great week. Thanks for hanging out with me today.